Hello and welcome to my new video. Today I will be talking about the books that I read in the month of March. I have with me my reading journal. I have all the books that I have read in the month of March, and I managed to listen 11 books. So it's quite a huge number for me. The first book that I read was Bare en dag by Gail Forman. It's a Norwegian edition of the book Just One Day, and I gave it 3 stars. It's a book about a girl, Alison, and the boy who is what's his name? I already forgot. Let me see if Willem. Alison and Willem. They meet each other in I think it's in London, and they decide to go for one day to Paris, and the story begins there. So, what are my thoughts? Firstly, you can see that it's an old young adult book, old school. It just has that feeling, a little bit nostalgic, to be honest. However, like in all old school young adult books, there are 3 main problems. They're insta-love, extremely insta-lovey book, because main characters, they're maybe knows each other maybe 12 hours, maybe a little bit more, and they are already in love. It's just impossible. That one. Also, the crazy things that happen to them, it's just very unrealistic, the decisions that especially Alison makes are so unbelievably childish sometimes. And the third thing is that for me, everything went too easy for Alison, because everything that she decided to do just turned out okay without any obstacles. And although when I read that book it was almost as a page turner, but if I put that book down, I didn't want to pick it again. So it took me almost 2 months to read it. So yeah, in the end I gave it 3 stars. The second one is also a Norwegian edition of the book Wonder by R.J. Palacio. In Norwegian it's called Meraki. It's about a boy, August, who is born with a lot of disfigurements on his face, and it's about his life from childhood, from the very young age until he goes to school. There's few perspectives, not only from August but from his sister and his friends. And I really enjoyed that book. It was very heartwarming, but also very sad and eye-opening. And I will definitely recommend this book for my son when he will be older, if he loves to read. Hopefully he will. So I think every child should at least try to read this one. So in the end I gave it 4 stars. The third book that I read was by S.K. Ali, Love from A to Z, and I will read you the description because I'm not that good at descriptions. A marvel, something you find amazing, even ordinary amazing, like potatoes, because they make French fries happen. Like the perfect fries Adam and his mom used to make together. An oddity, whatever gives you pause. Like the fact that there are hateful people in the world, like Zainab's teacher, who won't stop reminding the class how bad Muslims are. But Zainab, the only Muslim in class, isn't bad. She's angry. When she gets suspended for confronting her teacher and he begins investigating her activist friends, Zainab heads to her aunt's house in Doha, in Qatar, for an early start to spring break. Fueled by the guilt of getting her friends in trouble, she resolves to try out a new, nicer version of herself in a place where no one knows her. Then her path crosses with Adam's. Since he got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in November, Adam stopped going to classes, intent instead on perfecting the making of things. Intent on keeping the memory of his mom alive for his little sister. Adam's also intent on keeping his diagnosis a secret from his gay, grieving father. Alone, Adam and Zainab are playing roles for others, keeping their real thoughts locked away in their journals. Until a marvel and an oddity occurs. Marvel, Adam and Zainab meeting. Oddity, Adam and Zainab meeting. So this book was really, really educational for me, very interesting, also very eye-opening, to see the world from the other people's perspective, from people who are very different from me, because Zainab is totally different from me. We have different backgrounds, different religions, and yeah, so it was important read, and it was sad at the moments. At the moments it made me angry at people and how they react to others who are different from them. And yeah, I'm glad that I read that book, and I gave it 4 stars. Another one that I also listened on audio, I forget to tell you that Love from A to Z I also listened on audio. So the next one was by Tessa Dare, and it's The Duchess Deal. Tessa Dare is very popular author in historical romance community. So this was my first book I read by her, and it was just perfection. I think this book was my favorite in the month of March. In this book we have a girl, Emma, who is a seamstress, and she crosses paths with the Duke of Ashbury. Everyone, all his friends call him Ash, at least friends he had in the past, because now he blocked himself from the world almost. And they strike a deal. He needs a wife and an heir. She needs a stability and a house where she can live safely. So they think that's very good for them both. She's not afraid of him like all other women. Why all women are afraid of him? Because he's disfigured after coming back from the war. His face and body are severely injured, and he has a lot of scars. And seems like other women, and not only women, are afraid of him, but not Emma. So they think that everything will be just perfect for them. And it is. And it's hilarious. I laughed so many times out loud, and it's not that often that I even now that I remember, when I remember the banter between both characters, main characters, it just was so good. I love that book. I think I read it in maybe two days, almost in one sitting. The friendship between both of them, and after that the love and the steamy parts. The steamy parts, however, remind me of 50 Shades of Grey, only in the historical romance era. So yeah, very, very recommended book. It was just amazing. So of course I had to read another book in that series, and it is The Governess Game. In this book we follow the storyline of Alexandra. She's Emma's friend, Alexandra got in the situation where she loses all her money, so she needs a job, and she's hired like a governess for 2 orphan girls. Of course, the guardian of those orphans and Alexandra, they fall in love after some time. But like in the first book about Emma and Ash, in this one we also have a lot of funny scenes, a lot of ridiculous scenes, a lot of steamy ones. So in the end I also gave this book, for the first book, The Duchess Deal, I gave 5 stars, of course. For the governess deal, I gave it 4 stars. It was a little bit slower than the first one, but nonetheless very interesting and entertaining. And of course I had to listen the third one. It's the Wallflower's Wager. In this one we follow also one of the Emma's friends, Penelope. She's a literally wallflower. She's a lady, however no one invites her to tea parties or balls or something like that. She's forgotten of the society almost, and she's a little bit strange girl. She's very loving and very open-hearted, and wants to help everyone that is injured, from animals to people. And when a new neighbor comes into her view, he demands that she get rid of all animals that she has, because he wants to sell the property when he fixes it. And at that point the story begins. This book was a little bit maybe more serious, because we have one very serious incident that happens in Penelope's past. However, it can be even triggering for people. We're talking about child abuse, so have that in mind. However, this book was also very interesting, very funny, very entertaining, and I gave it 5 stars. So I can't wait for the 4th book about the last friend. So hopefully it will come up soon. Another book that I read was the one that I have DNF'd. It's Next Stop Love by, let me see, Rachel Stockbridge. I got that book from NetGalley, and I tried to read it almost for 2 months, and in 2 months time I read only 30%, and I had to force myself to read those percent. It was so boring. I don't even remember what that book is about. I think it's about two young students that meet each other, and somehow they help each other. They have some things that happen in both of their lives, and some difficult things. The first time that I read the synopsis of that book, it sounded very interesting and very intriguing, and I thought that it would be very important and very eye-opening book. But it was just so boring, and the characters were so one-dimensional and so not I didn't care what will happen for them, to be honest. They even got on my nerves a little bit, so I just decided that I can't force myself to read a book that don't give me any joy. I just can't waste my time, because there's a lot of books that I want to read instead. So next one was a self-help book, Coffee Self-Talk, I think, yeah, it's Coffee Self-Talk by Kristen, let me see the author's surname, Helmstetter. And I didn't have that much high hopes for that book. I don't have much high hopes for self-help books. Still, I am interested in reading them, but this one was quite surprisingly good. I gave it 4 stars. It's literally about book about self-talk, how you can almost program your mind to think the certain way, from bad thinking to good thinking, and the only thing you need to do is just have 5 at least minutes to do your self-talk. For example, to say not you are, but I am beautiful, and you can say whatever you want, whatever you need at that moment. And what I liked about that book is that there was some scientific examples how your brain works, and that's why this book looked a little bit more believable for me. And I liked that the author gave us examples, not what you have to do, but how you can do some things. So it was very helpful. Finally, a book that was literally helpful. So if you are interested in self-help books, you definitely should check this one out. Another book that I read, also from NetGalley, was The Snark by Justin Davis, and it was extremely short, not graphical, but illustrated children's story about a boy and how he thought that he saw a monster. And it took me maybe 10 minutes to read, but it was so cute. The illustrations were right up my alley. I like illustrations like that. The only thing is that when I'm thinking, if I have read that book for my son, who is almost 4 years old, I will definitely have to sleep with him. he wouldn't sleep alone after that story. So I think it's for a little bit older children than 4 years. But nonetheless, it was very cute. So in the end, I gave it 4 stars. Also, I read a book that I've got from my sister. It was a gift, and thank you, sister. It's Love Letters from Montmartre, French city, by Nicolas Barreau. In this book, we have a man, Julien. He lost his wife. She died, I think, from cancer, and her last wish was that he wrote 33 letters, one letter for each of her years that she lived on Earth. And she said that it will help him to overcome the grief. At first, it's almost impossible for him to write those letters. However, he tries. And he thought of one thing, that when he writes a letter, he puts that letter in the gravestone, in the secret compartment in the gravestone of his wife. So he writes those letters, brings them to the cemetery, and after some time he goes there with one of the letters and opens that compartment, and instead of all the letters that were there, he finds a stone heart. So now it's almost a thriller. Who reads those letters? Who is behind them? And how Julien's life starts to change for the better. I really enjoyed that book. I read it in one sitting, in one day. It's just a page turner. It was heart-wrenching book. It's really sad, at least the first part of the book. for those who have lost a loved one, maybe you should wait a little bit before reading this book, because it almost made me cry, although I still have all my loved ones around me, thank God. But the second part gave a little bit of hope. So sad, but in the end, good book. I love the main character and all his flaws and how he interacted with his friends and with his son and with his mother. And I love that mystery part also. It was written very good, very interesting. So I gave it also 4 stars. The last book that I listened was by Marisha Pesselis, Never World Wake. It's about a group of kids who gets in the car accident, and they gets in the world between the life and death, and they have to vote which one of them will live and will die. They have to reach the consensus that all vote for one and the same person who will live. Sounds very interesting, very unusual story, and it was unusual. However, I didn't love any of the characters. I was bored by the writing style. It was not that it was confusing, but it was maybe all over the place. Yeah, just I'm glad that I listened it because it is very popular and well loved and has a huge rating on Goodreads. However, I gave it only 2 stars. Oops. What can you do? Yeah, so that was all of the books that I read in the month. That was all the books that I read in the month of March. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!